Okay, so some underground fans have pretty heated opinions and hot takes, so today I'm going to be reacting to some of your hot takes and giving mine. Opium is falling off. Ken Carson destroyed Lonely's old projects, Project X and Broken Hearts were way better than their most recent ones, and Cardi has been milking Whole Lotta Red for 3.5 years. Their next projects really determine if their relevance continues or not, especially Cardi. I definitely agree with this. Ken Carson had older projects that were definitely better than the stuff he was putting out recently, but his new project looks promising. The same thing with Destroy Lonely. Destroy Lonely has gone worse over time. His last project, If Looks Could Kill, was not great, to be honest, and his older music was a lot better. I feel like the problem with them is they started focusing more on aesthetic than the actual music, especially Destroy Lonely. When Destroy Lonely was independent, he used to drop like crazy and it was all quality. Now they're standing in cages while Cardi's performing over them, and they're just doing everything. But being put in a cage by Cardi won't make them fall off. What's really making them fall off is they're losing the allure. When Opium first started, it was new, interesting, and fans were attracted to the mystique of it. They were wondering, oh, is this guy signed to Cardi? Oh, what is he gonna drop? Who is this guy? Oh, who are these guys? Homicide Gang. Who is this guy? Destroy Lonely. Now, none of them are even close to underground. They're all pretty popular, especially in rap. So if you're a rap fan, you know who these guys are. So they have no choice but to deliver. Cardi's move with Opium was also pretty smart at first because everyone was copying his sound back in the day on pure beats and the baby voice, so you might as well get some credit for what rappers are doing using your sound. But at this point, they've really watered down his Whole Lotta Red sound, and it's not anything crazy anymore. And as the allure of the aesthetic begins to fade, people are becoming more and more open to the fact that the music isn't as good as they made it seem. And people like Destroy Lonely and Ken Carson are facing backlash for their lackluster music. So that's a fan's hot take. This is my hot take. The current underground is not really underground, or at least what people were calling underground, like Tana, Slums, Young Chris, Young Fazo, Cash Dami, Chulo, and many more, like I guess Che Romani. None of these guys were really underground because none of them really came up to the underground route or were ever really underground. They were just making music and then they blew up off of TikTok and then they were on everyone's radar. For example, how can you call yourself underground when your music is being shown to hundreds of millions of people through TikTok? It doesn't really make sense, right? Another part of underground music is usually how real it is and how raw it is. There wasn't really anything real about a bunch of like 14, 15, 16-year-olds making music in their rooms, rapping about killing people, flexing items they don't own, and pretending to lead a life that they don't. It's actually really cringe and corny if you think about it. And a lot of rappers have a little bit of cap like just in their music, and that's okay, you know, just for a couple lines, but it's really hard to think like a 15-year-old or 16-year-old or 14-year-old is like cool, and you never really like, it destroys their image as a rapper. And there's nothing real about the music. Since they're so young, they haven't experienced anything. So most of them just copy flows from older rappers that have influenced them or make stuff up. So that's not saying they don't have good music. Like Tana has good music, Slumps has good music, but you can't really compare them to older underground artists like Lil Tracy, Uno the Activist, Thousand Man Funny, all the South Florida rappers, because they're not the same at all. So I think looking back at a lot of those 2021 underground, quote unquote underground rappers, a lot of them were garbage and no one really listens to them. Like, I'm not gonna name any of their names, but yeah, I don't really think they're anything that special. Hard Rock is trash. Nah, he's pretty good. Most of these rappers doing the metal and punk influences in their music aren't doing that at all. I love some Cardi, but the mosh pits aren't even really mosh pits most of the time, just jumping up and down. It feels to me like the whole pop punk revival scene with MGK and others, where it's just the mainstream trying to replicate something unique. Alright, yeah, I definitely agree with this. They're definitely not punk or metal at all. They just try to use some of the aesthetic in their music. It's kind of similar to what Raider Clan used to do with goth, and Black Cray and Goth Money used to do with goth, and a lot of rappers have done before. It's just most of these fans that are Cardi fans have never listened to like punk at all or metal, and they never will, so they think Whole Lotta Red is like a punk or metal album. It's really not. It is pretty unique for a mainstream rap album. So this ties back into the Opium thing. A lot of these rappers like Destroy Lonely, they're trying to be more punk, but they actually are way worse at this whole punk grunge aesthetic and alternative aesthetic that they're trying. They're actually way worse at it. Destroy Lonely's last album was way worse than his rap albums, and he's a much better rapper than whatever he was doing in his last album. And his delivery has like changed. It's become weird because he's trying to like mesh rap and these influences, and it's not working at all. I was honestly kind of coping when I said If Looks Could Kill was alright when I first listened to it, but I listened to it earlier and it's pretty bad. It's pretty horrible. Most of the tracks are redundant. Flow is weird. He's trying to have this aesthetic that you said is like punk or grunge or metal or whatever. It's not metal, but it's none of those. It's at most a bit alternative. It's really just trap beats that are a bit experimental with like guitars on the melody. So yeah, none of these rappers are really pop, punk, metal, grunge, or even alternative. Jace is extremely overrated. He makes good music, but everyone makes it seem like he's an underground god. He's not a god. I do think some of his music is overrated. He dropped a song to Ask My Lawyer, and it's pretty good, and that's a pop song, so he has some versatility, but most of his other genres are actually pretty bad or mid. They're just alright, and that's why I wouldn't call him versatile, and that's like the only criticism I'd say of Jace. He can rap really well on like traditional rap beats and regalia and ambient beats, but that's really it. He can't really do R&B or pop or whatever genres he's gonna try in the future, like EDM and dance. Like, you know, he's just not good at those genres. A lot of his pop music is not great. A lot of the times when he tries out other genres, most of it is not good, and then one song will pop out and it's like, all right, this is a good song. Like, I have to Ask My Lawyer. But for the majority, if most of his songs aren't good and he's not good at making songs in other genres for the most part, I wouldn't really call that versatile. That isn't really versatile to me. So that's where I'd say he's overrated. Bladee albums post Exeter are mid. Okay, I'll agree with you. A lot of Bladee albums, especially his recent work, is like not re-listenable. I just listened to it once and I wouldn't listen to it again. It's very experimental and it's not as good as his older work. With the exception of The Fool, that album is really good and definitely really listenable. It's probably one of his most mainstream friendly projects. And you could say, oh, his older music was experimental at the time for those times and later it aged to become better. I would disagree. He was more in like an underground scene with like Working on Dying and Tread and all those other scenes combined, and there were fans of that music. Right now, it's just like Bladee fans that are fans of Blade's music. And whether or not it ages well, that's the time, but honestly, I don't see it becoming anything crazy like his older music did. This underground music scene is responsible for a huge part in our age's opioid epidemic. So this is somewhat true. There are a lot of rappers like Lucky, Summers, and even mainstream rappers like Cardi and Uzi who make sipping lean look cool or popping pills look cool. And you know, there are even rappers like Lil Peep in 2017 that were doing pills and making pills look cool and glamorizing Xans and stuff like that. And nowadays, I guess perks are kind of like the new pill that people kind of think is cool and people die from them. So yeah, definitely a lot of people are getting influenced by underground rappers to do drugs, and it's kind of weird, but I just blame them for being dumb. Whole Lotta Red is garbage and relies on aesthetics too much rather than music, and Whole Lotta Red V2 would have been his best work of all time, but he wanted to make something new. Equal trash. So if you're curious about what he's talking about Whole Lotta Red V2, which is not the original Whole Lotta Red, but like the Whole Lotta Red era where Cardi was like on like a baby voice and he was making his best work with the baby voice. Think leaks like Molly and Red on Red and all sorts of legendary leaks like Kid Cudi and that type of stuff. He's saying that those songs, if they were on an album and a bunch more, it would have been Cardi's best work. And honestly, I agree. I feel like it would have been some of his best work. There was this point in time where after Lil Uzi dropped Love Is Rage 2 and Cardi dropped Die Lit, they took such a long break from releasing music and they made so much music that there's almost like a period for them where a whole new style was created, but it never really hit streaming platforms. Of course, years later, Lil Uzi put songs like Of Course on Pink Tape, but most of Lil Uzi's leaks, except a couple, did not make it streaming platforms. Same thing with Cardi. Most of his leaks, except like a couple, didn't make it to Whole Lotta Red. And he was trying to make it so that it was unheard, but an album with those type of songs that I just mentioned prior would have definitely become huge because they had so much hype around them, especially songs like Molly and Kid Cudi and No Lie and many more, to be honest. So let me know your hot takes and I'll make a part 2 if this video does well. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.